The icing on the cake, I call him, and the meat and potatoes in the sandwich, and our founder and a great, great man. Please welcome Reverend Doug Craig. He's going to tell us about Love Thy Neighbor.
Whoa, thank you, Joanne. And how's everybody this wonderful Sunday morning? Excellent. Just like you. Yeah, okay. Well, that's an interesting theme for the month, Love Thy Neighbor, or the theme is Love Out Loud. And they get a little teaser they put there. Living by example and loving each other, regardless of our differences, is the perfect way to create a world that works for everyone. And I thought, it would be just interesting for us to see how we follow that while we're driving our car. And it's easy when everything's going fine, but then you get that person who does something that takes you away from that very loving space. Has that happened to anybody else? Has anybody ever been that person? Yeah, well, you know how it goes, eh? It's just one of those things anyhow. And their affirmation they give is, I see every being as a divine expression of love. So we're going to explore that. But I think before we get into the talk, because that's an ideal that I think we can strive for. But is anybody there yet? I don't think so. But let's just go within for a moment and get centered. To that secret place of the Most High, and know in the calm, the peace, and the stillness that all is God and all is good. And by that declaration, I know that I am a part of the whole, because there's not a spot where God is not. So I am, and I invite you to declare that for yourself, I am a unique, whole, divine expression of the Most High, expressing this thing called life in my own special, unique way. And so I claim to that, and I accept that, and I realize that each and every individual on this planet, whether they're aware of it or not, are living their own life, their own way. And that may be a lot different than we are. It may be drastically different. It may be the same. However, everyone has a divine right to express this thing called life their own way. So let's just take a few moments to focus on the one that we have direct control over, and that is ourself. So let's just take a few minutes of silence to work at loving ourselves a little bit more. And as we focus in on that each and every day, in every way, we know that the love that we have to bring to the world and share with the world around us is directly reflective of the capacity that we have to accept and love ourselves. Because who and what we are, the way that we are right here and right now, is 100% okay. And that we're not static or not staying in this place. We're static moving beings, continually growing and embracing and experiencing and embodying a higher vision of this idea called love. So we go forward bringing that inner glow to the outer world, knowing that by enriching ourselves and bringing ourselves to the world in an enriching way, we're creating a place where other people find it easy to love themselves as well as loving us. So we go forward knowing that that is our mission. We give thanks. We know it to be so. And so it is. So my first topic that I want to talk about is love thy neighbor. However, I got a little addition to that. Try a little of it on yourself. Okay? A lot of people would say, though, well, I'm going to work at trying loving my neighbor more. And that doesn't work unless we love ourselves more. Somebody says, oh, I find it more easier to love my children than myself, or my family than myself. That's not true. The only way you could love somebody more than you love yourself is in your head. You can rationalize it and declare it and accept that to be the truth. But in reality, love is not a head thing, right? It's a heart thing. It's a being thing. And so you can't love somebody else more than you love yourself, because love is an energy and a feeling that we have within inside of ourselves. So in order to love somebody more, we have to learn to love ourselves more so that we can give that at that level. And that really is the critical thing. It's not working at being nicer to other people and loving them more. It's working at being nicer to ourselves and loving ourselves more, and then sharing ourselves with the world around. And I know there's people, they share themselves and we're not very happy about it. I used to share myself quite freely, and there were a lot of people that weren't happy about it, even though I seemed to be having a good time. Okay? Our job for ourselves is to learn to accept ourselves and love ourselves more so that we could take that kinder individual out into the world. And to be a little bit more patient with that person that is, oh, I learned this at the center today and I'm feeling so good about myself. You idiot! Watch where you're going. Oh. You know how that happens. I always say it's easy to get stupid fast. It doesn't take much. In Matthew chapter 19, Jesus has said, thou shalt love thy neighbor. Okay? But he also added something to it. As thyself. So Jesus didn't separate the two of those. Somehow we try to separate the two of those and thinking we got to work more with that person than we do with this person. And it doesn't work that way. We work with this person and share this person with others. That's how it works. That's how we begin to love our neighbor. I'm very fortunate, Anna and I, in our neighborhood, we have the most interesting neighborhood in the city, because the old houses are getting torn down and new infills built and new families moving in. And we got quite an eclectic group. We got a Vietnamese family, Filipino, a couple of Chinese families, all in the area. And they're all wonderful people. We like the little kids. We go over, for two of the families, we'd go over Santa and Mrs. Claus on Christmas Eve and take a little something over to the kids, eh? Now, we don't have to do that, but we're loving our neighbor because we love ourselves. We love doing that. If we didn't love doing that, will we do it? No. We do it because we love ourselves. And we like to share that. And, by the way, everybody's going into the season, eh? You know how the seasons shift? Well, this isn't fall for me. This is shifting into Santa season. And I'm getting all kinds of neat bookings, and we do very well with it. We got some really nice bookings. The last client specifically tracked me down through an agency, happened to be run by a friend of mine, because they wanted a specific Santa and seen me work in the streets in Kensington, because they got 2 floors in the Jack Singer Hall. Anybody ever been there? And they want Santa that can deal with 2 floors of people doing all kinds of stuff. So they hired me, because I can deal with that. That's not because I'm better than anybody else, but it's because I love myself and I love what I do, maybe a little bit more than the average run-of-the-mill person that's playing Santa. I don't play Santa because I am Santa. So you got to be real clear about that. And there's a magnificent difference in that. So, it's about loving yourself to be able to do that. In Matthew, Jesus said this, and this got me going really, just got me going. I didn't like it, actually. He said, "You have heard it has been said, love thy neighbor and hate thy enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them that despise you and persecute you." Well, that's a bit of a stretch if you ask me. Why would he say something like that? Is he saying it for the other people? Absolutely not. It's not for them. It's for you and the people that you care about. Because if you're carrying that animosity and that hatred and that despisement and that judgment in you, and you go there when you see things out there, that limits your capacity to experience something that is already there, is love. You don't have to but nobody needs more love in their life. What they need to do is release all the stuff that's stopping it from being there. It cannot help but being there, folks. Because that's what God is. God is love. So the only thing that causes any distortions and disruptions of that principle in our life is our own beliefs. That's it. So that doesn't mean, oh, thank you for robbing me and beating me up. I'm just ecstatic over it. I love you. No, that doesn't mean that. Okay? It just means that we've got to abstain as much as possible from our judgments, our condensation, and everything like that. Because if we do that, that means it's got to be somewhere inside of ourselves. It has to be inside of ourselves, because where else could we find that kind of stuff like hate? We have to nurture it and breed it and be part of it inside of ourselves somehow. And a lot of times that happens when we're children. I grew up as a racist, prejudiced, and a homophobic. But that wasn't because I was like that. It was because of the influential people in my life, i.e., particular, my father. And after enough training, anybody can become like that. So it was interesting coming into the awareness of having it and then having to deal with it. And still at times having to deal with it because it was so entrenched, it takes a long time to work some of that stuff out. It's just not easy. So one of the places where this thing really starts, and it took me right back to one of my base philosophies that I grew up with and I developed for myself, and it's one of the things that was very important during my career in the gang world and stuff like that, and it's really important now because it might be a little hard starting with loving. So where we really can start is by learning to respect ourselves and respect other people. Because respect kind of flows into love. Because a lot of times if you say, oh, you got to love yourself, a lot of people can't get into that. They go into the airy-fairy stuff and that. So bring it back down to something where people could start to work with. Bare minimum, respect ourselves and respect other people. Because it's easier for me to see when I'm not respecting myself by some of the things I think and say and do, you see. And so we try to bring that back and work with that. And then to remember the most important thing of all is that peace in the world starts with peace in the individual. How many times do you think Santa gets asked by a young girl or a young boy, usually, between 9 and 12? And they say, Santa, all I want for Christmas is world peace. Okay? Now, isn't that a heavy to lay on Santa? Well, not this one. I said, well, dear, Santa's going to tell you how you can get that. And I want your family, parents, grandparents, siblings, everyone that's here, I want them up here. So I get them up there, all of them. I don't care how many there are or aren't. And then he said, your daughter or your son has a real desire for Christmas to experience world peace. Do you all support her in that idea and believe in it for her? Yeah. I said, okay, now I'm going to tell you how we're going to do this. In order to have peace in the world, you must develop it within inside yourself. And as a teen, you can help each other develop this peace. Because as you develop it within inside yourself, that knowingness of what peace is will radiate into the world around you, and people will ask you what's different with you, and you'll be able to tell them and explain to them. But you have to be that yourself if you want to see it first. Does that sound like science of mind to you? Yeah. Guess what I get to do when I'm Santa? Like all kinds of neat things like that. Do you think I take a moment whenever there's something going on to put a little message in there like that? You do. And you know one of the neat things about it? Generally speaking, parents, grandparents, siblings, and children will listen a bit to Santa. There's a power there, folks. Ernest Holmes said, the mind which condemns understands not the truth of being, and the heart that would shut its door of its bosom to the one who is mistaken, strangle its own life, closing its eyes to a greater vision. The biggest life is the one which includes the most, not that we foster vice or place a premium upon wrongdoing, but that we understand the frailties of the human nature and learn to overlook much. To him who loves much, much is forgiven. Then it always comes down to the point of view of, well, what if you're dealing with somebody that's let's try hardcore drug addict. Okay? How does this apply? Well, it's called unconditional love. It's learning to love the person and deal with the problem. And deal with the problem requires very firm boundaries and limits. When we do that, people, you're making up rules, you're keeping it up. No, when you do that and you're willing to love them, you're willing to create a place where they can learn to respect themselves and you, and you can learn to put a boundary and limit upon what you're prepared to do. You're prepared to invite the soul in, but you got to not take the problem home. And when we can get to that and do that, that's one of the most difficult things when I do work with families, is to be able to get there. Because the drug addict always says, give me the money, I'm going to go kill myself. Have you ever heard that? Yeah. And you know what I tell them? You're helping to kill them anyhow by giving them the money to go get the drugs. That helps to kill them. So, that really puts it in there, and that basically is the truth. Does it work all the time? Well, my rate of people I work with, 65%, yeah, the other 35% kill themselves, but that happens, when you're dealing in that business, so. To him who loves much, much is forgiven. And so mostly when we're talking about that, we're really not directing that a lot to other people. We're directing that to the main part of love, which is forgiveness. Oh, yes, it always does come up, We got to forgive others, and we got to forgive ourselves and have that healthy boundaries and limits. That's the most important thing. I ran across this kind of a neat quote today in Facebook from a lady by the name of Liz Newman. We live in a broken world full of broken-hearted people. May that be enough to remind to us how vital it is to love one another. And that's the only way we're going to make it out of here. And you say, I can't love that guy that did that. I can't. Does that mean you're lost? No. You can like them. I don't like them. I don't want nothing to do with liking them. Okay. Does that mean you're lost? No. If you can neutralize your feeling and get rid of any animosity inside of you, so when you look at them, it's just like you're looking at somebody walking by on the street that you've never met before. So if you can look at them like that, then you've at least accomplished that place of complacency where you're okay. Because anything that happened there won't affect you or impact you. So that's a good place to start. I get all kinds of people get upset with me. Say, you can't do that. You got to love them. How can you do that? Has anybody got someone that you don't love and you don't like, but you maybe can work towards getting complacent and getting that negativity out? Can you do that? Yeah. That's a good place to start. And then if the other stuff happens, hurrah. If not, you're still going to be okay. Ernest Holmes says, think of the whole world as your friend, but you must also be a friend of the whole world. Or if you want a friend, you got to be a friend, right? Okay, I got a few little tips here, and I'm going to leave you with this. The do's and don'ts of cultivating love in one's experience. And you might see the do's and don'ts on the same list. Don't sit in judgment. Don't condemn self. Has anybody condemned themselves this week? Only one in the crowd. Yeah. No justifying. Somebody says, I don't understand why you feel that way. And you can say, well, I don't understand why I do neither. Too often we try to justify something that we can't. I can't explain why I feel the way I do, but if I feel it, it's valid. And it's just an experience that I need to have. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't blame. Oh, it's easier that way. However, as that one lady said to me after a Sunday service, oh, Reverend Doug, when you said that, you hurt my feelings. And you know what I said to her? Please, dear, don't give me that much power in your life. What do you mean by that? So I explained it, and she was even madder with me for saying that. But that's because it was the truth. Don't get attached to outcomes. Anytime, you can have an expectation, but anytime you get attached to outcomes, you're always going to get upset or disappointed, even if it comes out better than you thought, because it wasn't the way you thought. Especially if it's the Jays playing, but not last night. That's right. And refrain from these three things: worry, doubt, and impatience. Because anytime we're worrying or in doubt or impatience, we just really eliminate that attachment to that love inside that we are. We take it away. The do's: see God in all that exists. That's a work of art and a constant practice to do that, by the way. I'm good when I'm in nature. I have a problem. The only time I really have a problem with that is when I'm around people. Anybody else like that? Everywhere else I can see it. Do give with no strings attached. Somebody says, oh yeah, I'm a consummate giver. I do nothing but give, give, and give. But that dirty dog the other day, I gave him something they didn't even have the decency to say thank you. Well, yeah, but that's because you didn't give. Who cares what they do? That's their problem. They don't say thank you. That's not your problem. That's their problem. And then always remember to accept when a gift is given. Because if you don't, you're blocking your own flow, A, and B, you're depriving somebody else of giving. A little bit of guilt there for you. Be of service. There's always somewhere where you can help somebody out, We just had a big void in our life happen because, we've been working with my brother Bob. Anna's been doing all the care work and everything for the last 4 years under his conditions, and I've been doing all his financial stuff and, talking about the old. And he is actually having a great life. He really, in his situation, was doing wonderful, had all kinds of goals and things he was looking forward to. Just little things that were before to us would be just normal, but to him was a big deal. And, well, things went south and he passed away 2 weeks ago. So, that happens. And the thing about grieving and sorrow and things about that is the more you love yourself and love that person, the more the grief and the sorrow is. But that's not a sign of weakness. That's a sign of strength, of how much that you love that person. And no matter who you are or what you are, you got to go through that process. Even me, I know all this stuff, but guess what? I get cranked up and hurt and have to deal with my feelings. So that's just one of the things that we have to do. Have faith and trust. Have faith and trust. Trust in His presence and have faith in it. Be a good example for the children of the earth. I have talked to over 50,000 kids in high schools, prisons, junior high schools over the years, and never once did I ever tell them what to do and what not to do. Why bother? What I did was explain things you can do and things that you might not want to do. And I tell them from my experience. I said, you could take my word on this if you want. You could do whatever you want, but this is what it's going to look like over the next 15 years if you live and you don't change. Or worse than this. Okay? So try to be a good example. That's what I've tried to do rather than tell people what to do and not to do. And the last one here, have patience. Have patience. Have patience. And when you run out, have patience. Did I say all of that? Yeah, I did. And Ernest Holmes in closing said, without love, nothing can be accomplished. With love, all things are possible. And when we love, our prayers are answered, and the gift of heaven is made. And the gift of heaven is life, not death, love, not hate, peace, not confusion. So I know for you, as I know for myself, that as we're centered in this idea, we know that the Spirit within us guides us, leads us, and directs us to peace, prosperity, fulfillment, and happiness, which is our divine birthright, and we're open and receptive to receiving the guidance, acting on it, and receiving it, and giving thanks for all the abundance in our life, knowing it is so, and so it is. And so it is. Yee!